Hello everyone and welcome back to Explain the Charts, your go-to channel for in-depth market analysis. Today, August 14th, 2025, we're zeroing in on the QQQ, the Nasdaq 100 ETF, a critical indicator for technology and growth stocks. Let's kick things off by understanding the current economic landscape that is heavily influencing QQQ's price action. Recent headlines from major financial outlets present a fascinating, albeit conflicting, narrative. Just days ago, optimism surged across Wall Street as the S&P 500 and Nasdaq futures climbed, driven by expectations of a Federal Reserve rate cut following the July inflation report. This sentiment propelled the S&P 500 to another record high, with the Nasdaq Composite also reaching fresh peaks, indicating a strong appetite for growth assets. However, we've just received conflicting news. Stocks fell for the first time in 3 days, merely minutes ago. This immediate market reaction was a direct response to a hotter-than-expected producer price index, or PPI, which showed wholesale prices posting their biggest surge in 3 years. This renewed inflation concern suggests the Federal Reserve might reconsider or delay its planned rate cuts, which directly dampens investor enthusiasm for high-growth tech stocks. This push and pull between rate cut hopes and inflation fears is creating significant intraday volatility. Now, let's bridge the gap between these news events and the actual price movements on the QQQ daily chart. Looking at the long-term trend from April 2024 to mid-August 2025, QQQ has been in a very robust uptrend, climbing steadily from the low 400s to beyond the 580 mark. This sustained climb signifies strong underlying bullish conviction and a consistent demand for the innovative companies within the Nasdaq 100. We can identify several significant corrections along this path, which often present excellent buying opportunities for long-term investors. For example, the sharp drop in mid-April 2024 from around 445 down to 414 occurred on elevated volume, suggesting a cleansing of weak hands before a strong recovery ensued. Similarly, in early August 2024, QQQ saw another substantial decline from 471 to 435, again accompanied by a notable increase in volume, only to bounce back strongly. A particularly sharp decline in early April 2025, from 476 to 422, marked a temporary but intense period of selling, likely fueled by broader market anxieties or specific tech sector news at the time. Each of these dips, however, has been followed by a strong rebound, confirming the market's underlying strength and resilience to short-term shocks. Shifting our focus to the 1-hour chart, we gain a clearer perspective on the recent short-term trends and immediate reactions to news. Notice the pronounced downward move on August 1st, where QQQ fell from approximately 562 to 553. This significant hourly drop directly reflects the impact of the earlier hot inflation data news, as traders swiftly reacted to the changed economic outlook. However, the subsequent recovery back into the 560s and then into the high 570s and 580s demonstrates the market's quick pivot back to a bullish bias. This rapid turnaround was likely fueled by the prevailing rate cut hopes narrative, indicating that positive expectations are still largely overshadowing negative economic surprises. The area around 560 to 565 appears to have established itself as a short-term support zone on this time frame, demonstrating where buyers are currently willing to step in. Let's drill down further to the 15-minute chart to capture the most recent intraday price action and potential entry or exit points. Focusing on the period from August 12th through August 13th, we can see the nuances of the recent rally and the immediate impact of today's news. On August 12th, after some early morning consolidation, QQQ experienced a notable upward breakout from the 573 range, pushing decisively towards 577 and then approaching 580. This sustained upward movement on the 15-minute timeframe highlights strong buying conviction at these levels. However, as we moved into August 13th, particularly around midday UTC, The chart shows some exhaustion and a noticeable pullback from its intraday highs near 583. This decline directly corresponds with the stocks falling today news, triggered by the hotter PPI data. The formation of smaller candle bodies and longer upper wicks around the 580 to 583 highs indicates that sellers are becoming more active at these elevated price levels, suggesting immediate resistance. The current resistance level is defined by the high of 583.32 from yesterday, August 13th. Immediate support on this time frame can be found around the 578 to 579 level, where buying interest has emerged during recent dips. So, with all this information, what does it mean for QQQ's short-term and long-term outlook, and what are the key trading considerations? For the short term, QQQ remains highly sensitive to incoming economic data, especially inflation reports and signals from the Federal Reserve. A bearish scenario could unfold if inflation data continues to surprise to the upside, prompting the Fed to adopt a more hawkish stance or to delay rate cuts indefinitely. In this case, look for a sustained break below the immediate support of 578 on the 15-minute and 1-hour charts, ideally on increased selling volume, as this would likely trigger further downside. The next significant downside targets would be the 570 level, which has provided support in the past, followed by 560, a crucial pivot point from early August. Conversely, a bullish short-term outlook hinges on QQQ's ability to overcome and hold above the 583.32 level, which is yesterday's high. A decisive breakout above this resistance, especially with strong volume, could signal a continuation of the rally and potentially push QQQ into new all-time high territory. This would indicate that the market is willing to absorb inflation concerns in favor of growth potential. From a long-term perspective, the overall daily chart trend for QQQ remains undeniably bullish. The consistent upward trajectory since early 2024 suggests a fundamental strength in the technology sector. Nasdaq's recent partnership with AWS further solidifies its position and long-term growth prospects, acting as a significant positive fundamental catalyst. However, the market will remain keenly focused on upcoming big tech earnings reports and broader U.S. jobs data. These events have the potential to either significantly fuel the rally or trigger more profound corrections, depending on their outcome. For a long-term bearish signal, a break below the psychological and technical support of 550 on the daily chart would be a critical development. This level has served as a resilient bounce-back point on several occasions throughout late 2024 and early 2025. The ultimate long-term critical support level to watch remains the 413 to 415 range established in April 2024, representing a significant area of historical demand. In summary, let's highlight the most important price levels and key factors to monitor for QQQ. The immediate resistance is the recent high at 583.32. Key short-term support is identified between 578 and 579. More substantial support levels lie at 570, then 550, and the critical long-term floor at 413 to 415. Regarding unbiased predictions, we currently see a 65% likelihood that QQQ will continue to trade within its recent range or attempt new highs above 583.32 in the very short term. This scenario is reinforced if subsequent inflation data shows signs of moderating, boosting the Fed's dovish potential. Conversely, there's a 35% chance of a more significant pullback towards 570 or even 550 if inflation proves more stubborn than anticipated. Such a move would be further reinforced if upcoming big tech earnings disappoint or the jobs report signals economic weakness. Always confirm any major price movements with corresponding volume, as high volume on a breakout or breakdown adds conviction to the move. Pay extremely close attention to all Federal Reserve communications, the next CPI and PPI data releases, and particularly the earnings reports from major Nasdaq companies. These events will serve as the primary drivers for QQQ's direction in the coming weeks. That concludes today's deep dive into QQQ. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe to Explain the Charts for more comprehensive market insights and live updates.